This is the One Girl Revolution podcast, a podcast that highlights the stories of world-changing women and girls across the country. We hope that these stories inspire you, but even more so, we hope that these stories help you to see your own value, your purpose, and your power to change the world through your life. Every woman and girl is a One Girl Revolution. Welcome to the One Girl Revolution podcast. It's your girl, Kate, here. This week's episode is truly powerful. It's inspiring, emotional, joyful, and so full of heart. You'll laugh, you might cry. I know I got choked up a couple of times, but you'll walk away feeling more connected, more empowered, and more hopeful because that's exactly the kind of person that this week's guest is. Tayler Jones is a true gem of Detroit, a proud product of Detroit Public Schools, a theater artist, an actress, a director, and a teaching artist. She received her BFA in acting from Wayne State University, her MFA in applied drama from Eastern Michigan University, and studied advanced actor training at the prestigious Moscow Art Theater School. But what's most impressive about Tayler isn't her credentials. It's her heart and what she practices every single day. She practices what she preaches, and she is incredible. From a young age, Tayler loved acting and improv. That's one thing that both of us have in common, and that was part of why I wanted to have her on this podcast. Now Tayler's turned her passion into purpose, using the arts to empower and inspire the next generation. Through her work with the Detroit Creativity Project, Tayler teaches life skills through improv, builds confidence in young people, and reminds Detroit's youth that their voices and their stories matter. Tayler and I talk about the power of art, creativity, theater, music, and improv, especially for young people, and how these tools can be transformative. I know that they were for me, they were for Tayler, and probably they were for so many of you out there. Tayler also shares about the business she started during the pandemic, Detroit Beauty Box, which was born out of a desire to build community, support local businesses, and spark joy during a time of uncertainty. It's a beautiful example of how creativity and community can go hand in hand. In this episode, Tayler talks about the incredible work she's doing through the Detroit Creativity Project. She talks about the Detroit Beauty Box and so many other things. She also opens up about a deeply personal experience, the loss of her baby, and we have an honest and important conversation about miscarriage, infant loss, grief, and healing. Tayler shares her story with so much grace, strength, and vulnerability. We also talk about an incredible organization called Remembering Cherubs that provides support to women and their families navigating child loss, specifically miscarriage and infant loss. Tayler's story is a reminder of the strength of women, the power of art, and the resilience of the human spirit. Tayler is a teacher, an artist, a mentor, a change maker, and a one-girl revolution in so many ways. You do not want to miss this inspiring and jam-packed episode, so just hit play and listen to my conversation with Tayler. Here we go. Tayler, welcome to the One Girl Revolution podcast.
Hi, thank you so very much for having me. I'm so glad and excited and honored to be here.
I am so honored and so excited to have you on. You are such a busy woman. You have so many different things going on. I don't even know how we're going to cover everything. So I feel like we're only going to scratch the surface in this conversation, but I'm so excited to have you on to talk about the incredible work that you're doing. As people that listen to this podcast, they know that a lot of times we highlight nonprofit founders, female nonprofit founders, but you are an exception because you are exceptional. You're doing so many incredible things. You're an actress, a director, a teaching artist. I want to talk about the nonprofit that you work with, but yeah, I'm just so excited to have you on. You just wrapped a show. And so you and I were like trying to schedule this. Talk about that. How does that feel to just wrap this show?
Oh my goodness. It feels so good. And more than just to be able to shed light to women's issues for the show. It was called Hysterical by Elena Stauffer, and we did it at the Detroit Rep. And the Rep is known historically for its long runs. It's also the longest running professional theater company in Michigan. So I was just already honored to come back for a second season. I did Joe Turner's Come and Gone last year, and then to come back for this season. And we played high school cheerleaders. So that was already enough. And then add on this mysterious illness that broke out, and thinking that it's only been, I want to say, 5 or 6 years since the beginning of the pandemic. So it's like the fear of catching it or catching the thing, but to be in high school and to have all that drama that happens as well. Such a labor of love and such an important story that we got to tell on that stage. And with the community that the Detroit Rep brings in is so insane. It's like life changing. It's beautiful how much they love us and they come to our shows and they support us. And people have just been telling us that it was such a breath of fresh air. And it's like a comedy, but then there's those moments where I play more of like the heart of the show, and it kind of stops you and makes you think about what women go through. So just highlighting women's issues is such a huge part of who I am and the work that I do. I feel like it has to mean something and give something to the greater humanity.
Theater is such a powerful force to stoke conversation, to get people to think about things. And even as you were talking, I was like thinking about COVID, right? Like 5 years ago, the
Yes.
pandemic, everything shut down. And I think it obviously turned our world upside down, but even the innovation that came from people that are in theater, or thinking about the different TV show hosts who were like stuck at home, and they were coming up with these creative ways to still have conversation and build community. And theater really does that too. It, as much as it stokes conversation, it really builds community for people. And I know that you see that, but also people that are coming to the shows, right? Like it's
Yeah,
this community support system, and, it helps us all to feel not so alone.
absolutely. And we need that support. Oh, especially then, but also now. And it's something that we always go back to, I think, is the arts,
Yeah.
is that
So
shared connection and community. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And that's so much of what you stand for and what you do every single day. And I know the arts is such a broad thing. And I have friends and even family members and even myself where sometimes I'll think like, well, I'm not an artist, right? Like I can't draw, or I can't do
Mhm.
like, I'm not a painter, but art means a lot of different things, right? Do
Yes,
this podcast, and that's an art to me. Or even
exactly.
social media has become an art for so many people,
Hmm.
or documentary filmmaking, improv, right? All of this is like creating. And I had someone who was on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and she talked about how women and girls were made to be creators, right? You think about our bodies and like how we're always creating. And that was like such a powerful thing for me to think about. Like, even in the world, how we have this magical ability, and really everybody does. It's not just about women and girls, with this like magical ability to go out and
Yes.
create in the world. But I think about art, and I think about what you're doing through all the
Hmm.
different fields and avenues that you're working in. You're
Yeah.
really creating every single day. So Tayler, I want to rewind. I love in this podcast where we talk about kind of the story of evolution, right? Your
Hmm.
story, your life story, and how you got to where you are. I know your story is still being written every single day. All of our stories are still being written.
Yes.
But I would love to rewind and hear a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and a little bit about your own journey, and maybe how you got into theater originally.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny. Like I hit a landmark birthday, so I'm always now like, oh my gosh, this is such a full circle moment. So I've been having so many of those lately. And to begin, I would say that I was already always pretty like expressive as a child. The running joke for my childhood, I would say, and also being a part of the public school system was that, you're such this small girl. You're such a tiny girl in this with this big voice. Always. And it's kind of been my marker to kind of like want to be able to share my voice. So I did dance when I was younger, dance and choir in elementary and middle school. So that was like my introduction to the arts. And it was really fun. And when I was in, I want to say second or third grade, we were doing like creative writing, and we were also exploring poetry. And Shel Silverstein's work, of course, came into the fold, Where the Sidewalk Ends. And I just really took to that book, the poetry book. And my teacher was like, there's a talent show coming up, and, I hear you read aloud in school, and during class and stuff. So why don't you, sign up for the talent show? And I'm just like, okay, me by myself. I really like this poem, Sick. So I got to dress up in a robe, had my teddy bear, two pigtails, and I did the talent show. And it was basically about a little girl. The poem is about a little girl who is trying to convince her parents to stay home from school because she is sick. And then she tells all these reasons as to why she should stay home to get to the end, and for her parents to say that it's Saturday. So you just did all that. So it was so fun. And me and my mom, we rehearsed that poem before the big talent show, and I ended up actually winning it. So it was so cool. But that was like my introduction, if you want to think about like performance or like a monologue or in front of a big crowd. So that was really fun. And then throughout the year, we would have like a Black History Month celebration. For Christmas, we would do stuff as well. And then I got into play production in the eighth grade. I had an amazing teacher who was like the teacher. I had her for everything. I had like radio, women's health. Like I had her for that in middle school, Miss Lydell Love. And she's currently at Cass now, and there's a connection with Detroit Creativity Project with that as well. But she's just an amazing woman. And we got to do a lot of performance through play production, and we got to create our own shows and things like that as well. So that was pretty cool. Got to high school, and I'm like, I'm going to Cass Tech. My sister went there, and now it was my turn. And I was so excited to do performing arts as a curriculum, as a major. And I got dance, and I got voice or vocal. And so that was fun, but I was just like, well, when do I get to be back on stage? Where's the performance aspect? I did do some performance for dance, which was fun to do. But then I was just like, where is the theater? And I got put into a speech class. And funny enough, it was the teacher I had in eighth grade. I don't know, some changes happened and she wasn't able to fulfill the class anymore. So we got put into the black box, which is at Cass Tech. And I was just like, what are we doing? What is this going to become? And the class ended up being a children's theater class. So they were like, we're done with speech. Like, unfortunately, we're going to have to cancel that class and put you in this class. This teacher is available. And I got introduced to MC, or Miss Marilyn McCormick. She won a Tony Award, I want to say in 2016, for being an amazing educator, which she is and will always be. And so in that class, we did so much exploration. And from that, and performing, and from that, I auditioned for Readers Theater. So like Readers Theater and Performing Arts Guild was like very popular, especially with the performing arts at Cass. So I got into Readers Theater, and we would take current events and create shows from them, and we would perform them in front of our schools. We would perform them at like the what do you call it, the assemblies and things like that. And then we also do a lot of outreach performing, so at different community centers and events. And then we also like traveled to like Florida for conferences to perform at and things like that. That was actually my first flight, was for a performance to Florida, in Florida. So a lot of great experiences I'd had the opportunity to have because I had performing arts in my life and amazing educators. So graduated from Cass, and then studied acting at Wayne State University. And then from there, I studied abroad at the Moscow Art Theater School. And even at Wayne State, though, I did a lot of teaching artistry work that I don't think at the time knew of what it was that I was doing, but we would take a group of college students and we would go to middle schools or elementary schools and we would do workshops with them and performances with them because they didn't really have like a dedicated person to
Mm.
do theater. It's typically the English teacher who is trying to, use that art form as a means of expression. All that to say, everything feels like a full circle moment because I got my master's at Eastern Michigan University in applied drama for the young, so children's theater. And I'm like, oh, I was doing children's theater in high school. And then also with Readers Theater, that's the form of applied drama because I'm creating our own work based on the current events and social issues that we see that concern us in our worlds in our community. So it's been a really fun journey and being able to, I like to say, give back in that way of providing, my expertise or what I know, or just to be a living example of being an educator or being a teaching artist. Like I'm the definition of a
Yeah.
teaching artist,
Yeah.
truly.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's so powerful, and I'm glad you shared your story. Like theater and the arts, like broadly the arts, is so powerful because we all need an avenue to feel heard and to feel seen, right?
yes,
And some people do that through writing, some people do that through painting, like I said before, or drawing. But to me, and I had a really powerful experience as a middle schooler in an improv class. So I did this, I was homeschooled and my mom like randomly found this improv class and it was at this like awkward time, right? And you're in middle school where I was being bullied, even though I was homeschooled. I was a part of so many different groups and dealing with just mean girl stuff. I feel like so many people go
same
through
thing in
that. We
high
even
school for me. Yes,
same thing as adults, right? We still have that,
yes,
unfortunately, sometimes. And I got thrown into this improv class and it changed everything for me. It was like this really like epiphany moment where I found my voice and it was really hard sometimes,
yes,
right? You know, theater, any kind of theater or being in front of people or presenting or speaking, it's a lot. It's a big effort, right? But for
very
me, it
scary
was
for
like
some
I
people.
found my voice and I started thinking about the things that I cared about and learning how to
Yes.
talk about them, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so it's so powerful for younger generations to whatever it is, whether it's music or writing or theater,
Yes.
to have some sort of outlet, right? As they're kind of especially
Mm-hmm.
going through these awkward, difficult stages or bullying, that they can have these
Yes.
moments of transformation, truly.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as we mentioned, improv is absolutely the vehicle for that. And I want to say for my experience, even doing children's theater at Wayne State, we did a touring show, a number of touring shows where we would go back to or go to different public schools. And it would be so amazing because I actually went back to one of mine to sort of see my teachers that knew me when I was younger, but to also have time to talk to the students that were there was so transformational for me personally. And we're like celebrities to them because they're like, this is possible. And I think that, like, you don't even have to be an actress or a performer, but to know that, like, oh, I can graduate, or oh, I can use this other thing to express myself, or public speaking doesn't have to be this scary. It doesn't have to be intimidating to be and to live fully in who you are or who you want to be. So to be able to see that, I think is super important, especially in school system. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so important in all different ages too, right? We're talking about kids,
Yes.
but we did One Girl Revolution. We did a documentary a couple years ago, which I'll send it to you. It's called
Oh,
The
please
Girl
do.
Inside. And we took a film crew into Cook County Jail and we talked about the girl inside of Cook County, of course, but we interviewed 5 incarcerated women, not
Mhm.
about what they did to end up in Cook County, but who they are, about their lives, about their journeys. And there was a professor that taught a storytelling class and it was called Storytelling as a Healing Art. And she always
Mm,
said, like, how can you move beyond something that you've done or something that's happened to you if you don't know how to talk about it? And that's become it was such a powerful moment in my life, Taylor,
mhm.
but also it's such a powerful thing for us to think about, right? And what's
Yes.
so cool about theater and even the arts is, it's one thing to learn how to use your voice and to tell your story and to talk about things, but sometimes it's also fun to be somebody else, and still express
Yes.
yourself and
Yes.
still, and I see that like beautiful wonder and awe in children when
Uh,
they like start theater. And
yes.
I know that you see it more than anyone, where kids are like, kind of they get it. They're like, oh, this is so fun. I get to
They
like express
do.
myself. But
Yes.
I also think back to these adult women and like the power that class had. It was they got college credit for it. And just learning how to express themselves through movement, through sound, through, sound therapy, sound baths, and like even just like talking, using their voice and yelling. And it's so powerful to me. And so I know that I'm preaching to the
Absolutely.
choir with you, but for people that are listening, is like, for yourself, find an outlet, whatever that is, for all the
Yes.
adults that are listening, and
Mm-hmm.
for all of the parents out there or
Yeah,
people who know kids, like help them find their outlet, whether it's theater,
exactly.
whether it's art, whatever that means to you, help
Yeah.
them to find an outlet. Every day, women and girls are changing the world, lifting up their communities, and making a difference. At One Girl Revolution, we are dedicated to highlighting the stories of world changing women and girls to inspire the world. But we can't do it alone. This year, we're celebrating 6 years of telling these world changing stories, and we need your help to keep it going. Become a monthly donor by giving just $6 a month in honor of our anniversary. Every single dollar fuels our mission, keeping the podcast going, expanding our reach, and making sure these voices and these stories are heard far and wide. If you believe in the power of women's voices and their stories, if you want to be a part of the revolution, donate today. Go to onegirlrevolution.com/donate and be a part of the revolution.
You mentioned earlier about like putting limits like on ourselves, kind of like, oh, we're not a writer or we're not an artist in this sense of the word that we think that it is or isn't. And I think that we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to think that we are only one thing, one thing or
Totally.
another. And I think that improv and drama, we defy the limits because there's so many possibilities, or we can find ways to work with the ones that we have. And I think that is what improv does as well, is it helps us adapt and change and grow and be able to do that in a really fun way. Especially for adults, please find an outlet that lights you up, even if you're not good at it. It's okay to try something new, and be a beginner,
Yeah.
be a learner.
Yeah, no, it's such an important thing. And this month, May, is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so that was kind of part of why I was like, I gotta have Tayler on because like this is so innovative and so interesting, but just getting people to think about the arts as a space to really like deal with your mental health and create a space for you to just be present with yourself. We all need those outlets, and sometimes we can just get so busy, especially women taking care of everybody else,
Yes.
and we need to create a space for ourselves to be heard, to, find a new talent, or, discover or be surprised by things that you didn't even know were possible. And I think that's what's cool about theater and music and so many different things, is like take a class and just try it and see where
Yeah.
that leads you. But it might be the thing that just unlocks the potential in you, which is just incredible.
Yeah, and I think that we have to continue to be learners or explorers or investigators. And, I think that's so awesome to be able to do. And you kind of mentioned earlier of like being able to share your own story. And I want to say that sometimes it is easier, especially for children, and for adults, I would say, to tap into a character. Sometimes it's easier to talk through a character or through a persona instead of yourself, but that's going to empower you later to be able to share your story. And it empowered me during the pandemic. And I know we're going to get into a lot of that as well later for my business, but also for a nonprofit that I support for women who have experienced infant loss and pregnancy loss. And as someone who has as well experienced that, you said that we're like creators. I was just thinking about that as well. I was able to share my story and build a sense of community because I decided to speak up. Even if your voice trembles, as long as you're able to, get that out because you realize that it's not only your story, it's also for someone else. And especially with women, we kind of like, I think maybe because of society, we tend to, I'm going to keep this inside. I'm going to hold this, even though I'm holding everything for everybody else. I'm going to hold this thing deep inside of me. But when you are able to finally express it, you realize that you are not alone. Like somebody else is sharing the same experience or knows something else about it that could help you, or you could be the one to help the next person. So
Totally.
absolutely using your voice.
What's that organization for people that are listening?
Yeah,
So just a resource
absolutely.
that they have out there.
Yeah, it's called Remembering Cherubs. And as we are, gearing up, or I guess it'll already be released for Mother's Day. So just keeping people in mind. Yeah. So yeah, Remembering Cherubs by Monica Scholler Anderson. I've been able to do some really great work with her. I invited her to my event. It had been 5 years during the pandemic. I want to say 2021. It had been 5 years since my baby was born sleeping. So I wanted to have some event because all this time had passed and I really didn't find a sense of community for myself. So I was like, I want to create it, even though it wasn't there, but I still want to honor my child in this way. And during the pandemic, depending on how you or who you are, you may want that time to isolate because of the loss of you experienced, or you might want to be seeking more people to connect with. And so I did some work. I got busy and I was like looking up different not arts organizations, but organizations that supported women and families. So I came across hers, and then I also found out that she does spoken word, um, and she's amazing. So definitely reach out to her. But yeah, she's awesome. So it was really awesome to connect with her and a few other um, uh, Detroit Sister Friends, like a whole bunch of other organizations that I was able to like create a whole event for and
That's
have them
amazing.
come and share their resources with women and families. And I had about 20 or so families and women who needed that support, who came out, and I was like, okay, I'm going to give voice to this. And it was so scary for me to do at the time because I hadn't really spoken publicly about my loss. Um, but I was like, I think it's time. Yeah.
Taylor, I thank you so much for sharing that. And I think it's such an important thing for us to know about. I'm going to be putting Remembering Cherubs in the show notes so people can easily get connected. And that's something that I've been
Yeah.
thinking about so much, especially like you said, I wasn't even planning to ask you about that, but it's just providential that it came up because with Mother's Day, there are so many women who have experienced loss. And so being able to talk about it and help them not feel so alone and know that there are
Mhm.
resources out there. I think with miscarriage and infant loss and even child loss,
Yes.
I've
Yes.
feel like I've seen more like on social media of women starting to share their stories, but we need more
Yes.
women to just continue to share their stories and build community and network. And we actually had Miss Catherine, who's the founder, the OG of Sister Friends nationally. And
Oh,
so she was on the
right.
podcast a couple of years ago, forever ago. But I just love Sister Friends and love everything that you're doing and everything that you're involved in. But I will be sure to put Remembering Cherubs in the show notes so people can easily get connected to them. But let's transition over to the Detroit Creativity Project. So, this was one of the things I wanted to ask you about. It was founded by a man, so a little different to everybody who's listening than what we usually talk about. But Mark Evan Jackson, a talented actor, improviser, writer, and comedian, founded this incredible organization. So this goes outside of the usual, but it's such an important organization. And the interim executive director, Beth, connected you and I had reached out to her and she was like, you got to have Tayler on. Like, let Tayler tell this story. And so for people that are listening, can you share what is the Detroit Creativity Project and tell me about the great work that you're doing there?
Yes, I'm so thrilled to share about the Detroit Creativity Project. So it is a nonprofit arts organization, and its main goal is to provide youth opportunities to succeed. So we do that by through improv. So teaching life skills through improv. It started in 2011 with Detroit Second City, and Mark has talked a lot about that. And I've actually been able to, through my journey, either performing or through teaching, to meet some of those incredible people. And he always tells the story, Mark, of them gathering together and when wanting to give back to their city of Detroit and wanting to do something to give back. And the thing that they always would agree upon is that how improv changed their lives. So I think that's such a huge thing, and it aligns with my story as well of wanting to give back and build that sense of community. And they need the support. Detroit youth, that they are our future. They are creating the future now as well, and they need us. And I think it's such a great container to put improv in as teaching life skills, just meaning that you don't have to, you're going to learn public speaking skills by or through the different explorations that we go through during our sessions. So we do teach improv in public schools in the public school system, but we also have other community organizations that we partner with. So we do after school and outreach programming as well. So it's about 10 weeks, often in school programming. And we come in and we talk all about collaboration and empathy and building that ensemble and working together. Yeah, so it's been a joy. And I know a lot of people may say that they love their job, but I really do. And it's not just the difference we make in the youth lives, but it's also the amazing, incredible people at DCP that I get to work with every day. Yeah.
I just think about those skills, right? Like improv, you can use that for
Mhm.
anything in life.
Yes.
And that's what I'm thinking about, even like when I was going through theater as a kid. And,
Mhm.
there were definitely moments, Taylor, where I wanted to be on Broadway and wanted to do
Yes.
all this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, actually, I know why I went through that because it's like, okay, now I'm doing a podcast or you do media or
Mhm.
job interviews. Like, I just think that the arts are
Yes.
so great for kids and really for people of all ages because you want to keep like working and becoming better and a better communicator and
Mhm.
learning how to carry yourself confidently, right? And I think that
Yes.
you have to, and improv, you have to be confident. Whatever crazy thing
Yes.
you're about to step into, whatever the scenario is, you
Mhm.
have to be on your game. And it's just like this great training. And that's why I'm so
Yes.
just blown away by the great work that you're doing through the organization. How did you get connected or how did you first find out about DCP?
Yes, absolutely. So I was actually a youth improviser when I was at Cass Tech. So being a part of like Readers Theater, we had the great opportunity for them to come for a few weeks with us and do arts programming. And unbeknownst to me at the time, that's when they first started the Detroit Creativity Project. So in 2011. So it was the beginning of this amazing program. So that was my first touch of improv then. So then during the pandemic, a friend of mine sent me the listing for the job, and I was just like, "Oh my goodness, this is so cool! Let me look more into this." And I did, and then come to find out, I'm on their website. So I'm just like, "Oh my goodness, pictures of me in high school, from high school in the black box. I'm on the website." So I was just like, I definitely have to apply now. And I feel like I was meant to, yeah, to be here to work for them. And it's been an
That's nice.
amazing journey. So in 2022 is when I started working with them, and I've been working with them ever since. And it's been awesome to just build different curriculums. So like social emotional learning curriculums, and being a part of different communities and teaching with different demographics around the city of Detroit. So it's been awesome. Yeah.
Well, it was meant to be. You were meant to be doing what you're doing now. You mentioned a couple of times the black box. For people that are listening and they have no idea what that is, what is the black box?
It's a sacred space. It is a sacred space. So you have a theater. We might go there for like assemblies or like when there's special programming going on. And it has like, lots of seating, a classic theater, right? A location, a place. But the black box can be transformed. It is literally black. So the walls are black, the floor is black, chairs and things like that you can set up. But the coolest thing about it is that you can transform the space into whatever is needed or necessary at the time. So you can make an audience, you can make, I'm going to say theater words here. So you can make the audience be a thrust. So like three sides of a stage. You can do a show in a round. So like a circle. It's just like endless possibilities of creation. And we did a lot of exploring, and we would have like rehearsals in class in the black box. Yeah. We also had guest speakers come in who were like doing the thing, actively working in the theater scene, not only in Detroit, but also in LA and Chicago and New York. And I think that has really helped and propelled me on my journey of once again knowing that it's possible. So they would come in and talk to us, and we would circle up. We love creating circles in theater so we can see everybody. Everybody's a part of the one big group. And they would come in and tell and share their stories and tell us about their journey. And I think that's why I'm so like excited, and it's so necessary. The arts is so necessary, and it's usually the first thing under attack and or the first thing taken away from the public school system. And I think that we we are what else are what can we become without the arts? It's the humanities and the arts, like, and it helps us explore different worlds that we may not be used to outside of our own, but it also is a mirror, so it reflects our experiences. So yeah.
There's such a you mentioned that the arts are oftentimes the first thing to be cut, but also there's a whole mindset in this culture too where the arts don't matter, right? People are like,
Yes.
oh, focus on math. Parents even that are like, focus on math and science or STEM or this.
Yes,
And no offense to any of that. Like if that's the thing
absolutely.
that drives your kid, go for it.
Yes, but
But
let's steam.
yes,
Let's
right.
add the
And
arts.
right. And so I think about, and I even am like reflecting, I'm one of four kids and like reflecting on my siblings. It's like we all are into the arts in different ways. And
Uh-huh.
it's like, yeah, like my brother has a PhD. So he's obviously gone on in academia and he's an English professor and like it's incredible what he's accomplished. But really like the arts have been so much a part of our lives, and we grew up, my mom was obsessed with Rodgers and Hammerstein, so we know literally every word to every song and every Rodgers and Hammerstein musical and things like that. But it was this whimsical side of life, and I think that's why my mom loved musical theater so much, because she had gone through a lot in life, and it was always this escape a little bit, even just in your
Yes.
everyday life. And so it's really become that for me. If I'm having a bad day, I just turn on one of those songs, and it like can
Oh,
turn my day around. But all of us need
yes.
that, right? And so I
Yes.
also want to see, I hope that we see, and I know we're turning, that's why it's
Hmm.
so important to have people like you on this podcast, because
Hmm.
we need to change that mindset in our world, showing
Yes.
that like the arts are so critical. And even what we were talking about improv, I'm like, every person, no matter your age, no matter your background, should do an improv class at some point, because
Yes.
it's only going to help you. It's only going to help you in, be a better communicator. It's going to help you be funnier. Maybe it like helps you, like it helps you work on that. And so I really want to
Mhm.
see that mindset shift where we see that, like you said, that that the arts are just as
Oh my
important ever as
goodness.
everything else.
The shift, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, when we're in classrooms and sometimes, as an educator, sometimes it's like, oh, we don't know the gravity of our impact while we're there. But I will say that it's so amazing to see the change that happens in the youth that we work with. It's transformative for us to see it, but just the confidence that grows and that builds. And I love it from the beginning of class to the end of class, or even from the first day to the end of all the 10 weeks of us being together, and seeing that they're more confident in who they are. And that's why I love improv too, is like you don't need anything. You don't have to, like, if you're in the acting world, you don't need a whole bunch of props to make something look better or whatever. Everything you need is in your imagination. Everything you need is within you. So there's no looking outside of yourself. But I think too, within just gaining confidence, it's collaborative. It's a group effort. And when we play different games and share stories, that story could only exist with the people in the room at that moment. You couldn't have come up with that by yourself. And I think that we need to remember that as we think about what we want to do or grow community, is that we need each other to do that as well. We can't do it alone. There's no singular person. But when you are that singular person and they see us as a teaching artist being silly and goofy and having fun, we open the door. We open the portal, because I work a lot too with middle schoolers. So it's a time, I'm sure, that they're going through, but we can make it this fun thing. And it's so fulfilling at the end of a class when kids want to come up to you and hug you, or they want to make sure that you're coming back next week, or they can't wait to show you or share with you this story they created or this picture that they drew. And it's so amazing that, like, it's actually, it's penetrating with them. And children are such a wealth of knowledge and emotions and creativity. And I think that when we harness that energy and tell them, and not, teach it out of them, as we talked about, like the general education classes and things like that, that they still need. But we can't forget about the arts, because it's in everything that we do. Literally, it is in math. We still have to know. We have counts and stuff like that too. We have to do, and technical theater is also a thing. So we are not without the arts. We're not ourselves without the arts. And being able to have that voice, when you say that theater does not matter, you strip away somebody's opportunity to be able to express themselves or have a new experience.
Looking for stories of women who are changing the world? The One Girl Revolution podcast is your go-to for inspiration and empowerment. Subscribe today on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and never miss an episode. Let's celebrate the power of women together. So on that same note, Taylor, because it's just, I mean, everything you're saying is just resonating with me so much, but I want to illustrate for people that are listening the power of DCP and like the great work that you're doing. So we're all about stories here, and I love highlighting. I know that there are so many stories you could point to, but I would love to highlight maybe a story or two of someone who's been helped through the work that you do. And maybe it's one of your students that you just saw them kind of awaken and become the person that they were created to be. Is there a story or two that you could share?
Oh yeah. I'm thinking about, so I was hired as a teaching artist, and I still am, with the Detroit Creativity Project. And then last year I got put on as the adult advisor for our youth advisory team. So it was really awesome and an honor to be asked, because um 10 or so years ago, that was me. Like I was the one in the classroom, um seeing and experiencing this organization for the first time. So then to be able to come back all these years later and be able to bring what I know to the classroom and to the youth, it's magical. And I think that's the power of theater. So being able to share that with them, I think about there's a few students who are either at CAS or DSA, Detroit School of the Arts, Soraya and Jewel and Faith, and they're such amazing women, and they're now off to college. But to see the transformation in them, we have a yearly showcase now, improv showcase, and it's a chance for us to invite all the groups of students and schools that we worked with. And we work with Brilliant Detroit. We work with a lot of different nonprofits or like Clara B or Vista Maria, organizations like that as well, different communities. And we're all able to come together for this one day and play games with each other, or they might have some stuff prepared. They might choose a game or two that they want to showcase. And they all come up and they all get to just experience each other. And even being in the space and like communing and sharing lunch with one another is so interesting to see. So I'm thinking about my first showcase experience, being able to see all the students that we've taught come together and prepare for it. And just to see, I was at a middle school, me and a co-teacher, and it was my first year teaching with DCP, but I've been a teaching artist for at least 8 years now. So I've been around at other arts organizations and schools, but being with DCP and using their curriculum of teaching life skills through improv was just a different way. But I was just like, of course, it is this. It is all these things, and the way it's scaffolded and built in is just a great vehicle, I think, for students to explore. So that improv showcase, I remember these middle schoolers being very timid and very shy and just like even afraid to like try sometimes. So to see them get to the point where they felt confident enough to be on stage in front of other people, it's huge. And we don't, even though, you know, we might be teaching artists and so we perform, we're actors and we are educators, it's not, you know, lost on us the courage that it takes for, especially for these youth, to get up there and share these things with them and share these things with their peers, with each other, you know. So it was really amazing to see that, and then to hear their feedback of like they've never done something like this before, or oh my gosh, I couldn't believe, you know, I was talking to high schoolers and they were telling, high schoolers were coming up to me, you know, as a middle schooler and telling me how awesome I did. To have that sense of community, I think is huge, and it's something that we try to do annually. So we try to bring all the programs that we worked with together and put them in one room. And it's a warm audience because it's filled with educators like us and families and people who just want to see you thrive. And this is exactly what DCP is. It provides those opportunities. Yeah, and then with the youth advisory team, I mentioned Soraya and Jewel, they became the hosts. So we're pushing more and more to be youth driven. And because that's where we're headed as a country, as we should be, you know, handing off the baton and allowing them to lead. And I think that it's creating more leaders in the world, and those skills that they learn. It's amazing to see them go up there and MC, and also go throughout the crowd, and you know, just be this role model or example of what you can do, of what you can accomplish. And they were right there with them, you know, sitting in the classroom, and then now they're going to college and experiencing life for themselves. So yeah.
It shows you what's possible, right? Like even you were
Yes.
talking earlier about different speakers that came through and it like helped you to see what
Yes.
was possible. Like, oh wow, somebody could make a career out of this, or seeing how other people use improv or the other
Mhm.
things that they're experiencing for their
Mhm.
careers in different ways, right? People that are on TV and it's like, oh my gosh, they need to know
Yes.
improv, you know, because there are situations that happen. And so it's so cool for these kids to see that, even like being in middle school and seeing high school students and how they're utilizing their gifts and
Yes.
talents and growing and evolving. And I cannot wait to see where DCP goes from here. And I can't wait to continue to
Hmm.
stay involved and stay connected with you and everyone over there. But
Yes,
for people that
yes.
are listening, what can they do to support the Detroit Creativity Project and how can they get involved? And when I ask about how they can get involved, that's both volunteers and like maybe there are people with kids listening that are like, hey, I want to get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have a website and we take donations year round, of course. And we just had our showcase in March so they could see all the amazing work that the youth have been doing in person. But we do like to have different events. I'm working currently with the youth advisory team so we can have a performance series so we can do more in the community as well. We also have fundraisers that are put on by our partners or like our community partners. So that's been really cool to see some hip hop improv and things like that.
I'll put the website, I'll put your social media so people can easily get in touch with DCP and if they're interested, they can reach out. So it's really
Yeah, and bring us
incredible.
to your schools. Like
Yeah. Yeah,
yes, absolutely. And I always,
exactly.
if like when I go to DSA or am I at any school or cast, I'm always like, you know, the amazing work that they do and how open they are to the process. It's just mind blowing. And I'm like, if we can have more people like this in our world, the better off we'll be. And I think that's something I want to mention is empathy and how it's so important. And it's something that we teach through improv and building those skills. So yeah, it's just really awesome to see the work that the students do. And they look forward to it. So sometimes we're the best part of their day. And it's not to brag, but they tell us that, you know, the 1 hour, the hour that we spend with them, you know, is the reason why they might come to school or to have an adult in their lives that they see constantly or consistently is also important. And I think that it's Detroit specific because we know how powerful it was through our journey. And we want to be able to give the same experience to the youth here. And for
It's
them to get that experience early on, oh my goodness, the better off they will be.
it's life changing for kids, you
Mhm.
know, and just to be seen and heard, like I said before. And so I can't wait to continue to follow. Like I said, I'll put the website in the show notes. But I want to talk to you, Tayler, because like I said at the beginning, you are a woman of so many talents. And I knew going into this, we were not going to be able to even like scratch the surface. What was I trying to say? Scratch the surface. But you founded this really cool project called Beauty of Detroit Box. And I know there's a really cool story for how it started, but tell me that story and talk about the incredible work that you're doing through Beauty of Detroit Box.
Yes, thank you so much. Oh my goodness. So Beauty of Detroit Box was started during the pandemic, like so many other things, of course, but I wanted to find an outlet for myself to be able to connect with other people. So the arts industry was dark. I had just graduated with my master's of fine arts in applied drama and theater for the young. So I was just like, but this is what I do in this space in this world is such a in-person activity. So trying to navigate how to do that virtually was a task. But in the meantime, I was struggling, and like so many other people as well, with their mental health. So I was just like, you know, what can I do in order to not only bring people together, but also to take care of myself. Like as we mentioned earlier, so often women we play every role and we're everything to everybody. And oftentimes than not, we come last or we're just not on the list at all. Or and that could be for a number of reasons, whether we feel guilty about making ourselves a priority or life is busy and we just get sucked in and doing all the things. So during the pandemic, a lot of everyday things were scarce. So I know a time where like the shelves were empty, right? Going to different stores and things like that. And I would think that like, you know, how are we supporting the people in our own neighborhoods or in our own backyards, the small businesses that need our support during this time? So I was like, okay, that's the community aspect of they need our support. They might be going out of business, and it's much easier to get something locally than it is oftentimes than not, elsewhere. So how can we support them? And then the other part of that was bundling all these things up. So it is a subscription box as well as a curated gift box service. So we send it out every 3 months, every new month. They get a package, a self-care package with a variety of self-care activities. So it can be bath and body items. We also do a snack or something edible, and then like an activity for them to reconnect with their best selves, is what we like to say. And it's truly, it has become, I think, it's twofold. I think that we need to learn how to support not only ourselves, but our community. So, in order for us to be better stewards of the community, right, we need to be able to take care of ourselves. So,
Yeah.
finding the support and resources to be able to do that, I'm like, I'll take the guesswork out of it for you, and I'll, reach out to these different small businesses and be able to share their stories and share their products. Yeah.
Yeah, it's supporting small businesses in our own community, but also it's like a date box with yourself, like a date with yourself,
Yes.
which I feel like as women don't do enough of. And so it's absolutely incredible. I will put the website to your business in the show notes as well, so people can easily get connected to the Beauty of Detroit
Yes.
box. But I know you're coming off this show. You have so much going on with DCP, Beauty of Detroit box. What's next for you, Tayler? What do you have cooking? What are things coming up in the weeks and months to come?
Yes, so we're nearing the end of the semester with school. So I'm getting ready for summer programming. So not only do I do summer programming with DCP, but I also do that with Matrix Theater Company, which is in Southwest Detroit. And if you are looking or you know a child, you can send them our way with Matrix Theater Company or even Mosaic. So Mosaic Theater Company, I started working with this year, and we're all partners of one another. We support the great youth-driven work that is done through these different arts organizations. So yeah, I'm preparing for that. We're preparing curriculum for that and also getting children registered and signed up. So right now, that's where my head is for the most part. And then of course it's always a holiday season when you're like in gift giving. So yeah, so that's pretty much what's coming up for that. I would like to say or add too with the Beauty of Detroit box is that we've been able to do custom gift boxes as well for a lot of different community partners as well. We did 100 or more graduation boxes for Detroit Promise, which was really awesome a few years back. And then we also like to take the time to partner with at least one nonprofit every year and be able to either provide them gift bags or to be a support in a way to whatever event that they're throwing. So last year it was a Girl Like Me, and they also appeared on the
I
Kelly
love them.
Clarkson
Yeah.
show.
And
So,
they've been on this podcast, Tyra.
oh,
Yeah.
awesome, Tyra. Yes.
So it's amazing. That's awesome. Well, I can't wait to continue to stay in touch with you and continue to follow everything that you're doing. But before I let you go, Taylor,
Yes.
I always end this podcast on two questions. So I'd like to ask you, who is a one girl revolution in your life? You are a one girl revolution, but who is a woman or girl that inspires you?
Ooh, I'm gonna have to say, I'm gonna say my mom. Yes, my mama is definitely, yeah, always in my corner, always my support, and my biggest cheerleader. Yeah, somebody I can always go to and count on. So, and I see the impact that she has at home, but also in her own community that she works with. Not a day goes by that she's not helping or reaching out for or helping someone else in need. So yeah, I would say her. And I also want to give a shout out to the amazing teachers that we get to work with and partner with in the school system. And it's because of you and their amazing examples that I'm able to be who I am and to be where I am today. So definitely have to give it to the teachers and the school systems. Yeah.
Well, shout out to the mamas before Mother's Day. People will be hearing this right after Mother's Day, but shout out to all the mamas and shout out to all the teachers because they are
Yes.
incredible and doing such great work empowering these kids to be who they're
Yes,
meant to be. So
exactly. Sometimes that's the only light that people get is the one that you provide.
it's
So
so true. It's
yeah.
so important. And all of us have that ability, right?
Mhm.
Teachers are, and not to downplay on teachers, but all of us have to have that ability to be a light to the world and to
Yes.
empower kids. And so we all can do something. But Taylor, before I let you go, I always end this podcast on one question. So I'd like to ask you, if you could leave women and girls around the world with one message, what would it be?
Yeah, your voice matters. Yeah, your voice is so important and it's so necessary. And yeah, it doesn't matter whether or not, you've heard the thing before or if somebody else is saying it. Sometimes it has to come from you. Not even sometimes, it needs to come from you. So even if you're afraid to share whatever that thing is, I say do it and do it scared, do it afraid. Of course, find your supports, find your people, but sometimes the only way to find them is when you use your voice to speak out and let people know that you need it, that you need the support. Um, so yeah, that's something that has stood out for me in my journey. Um, is that you are the example. It's so weird sometimes when people do come up to you and they're like, "You inspire me," and it's really like, how do you take that sometimes? But it's like, wow, like I can be that inspiration just by me living truthfully and living boldly in my purpose. And just that alone, which is why I love improv, which that alone shows people that they can do it too. And they can be as comfortable as they want to be in their own skin. And it's a place that they should be comfortable in. And we need more people. We need more people to share their stories. Because they make a difference. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Stories are so powerful. And I often talk, Taylor, about how we are as unique as our fingerprint. But
Oh,
even as you were
yes.
talking, I'm like, our voices are so unique and our stories, our experiences, we need to tell our stories. We need to speak up. And you are such a beacon of light and such an example of that. So, Taylor, thank you so much for being on the One Girl Revolution podcast. And thank you for all the incredible work that you do.
Absolutely. Thank you so very much. And thank you to Beth and Detroit Creativity Project.
For more from One Girl Revolution, to listen to all of our podcast episodes, watch our Emmy nominated documentary series, follow us on social media, donate to our nonprofit organization, and more, please visit onegirlrevolution.com. That's the number onegirlrevolution.com.